students volunteered to participate in this study of human behavior under extreme and prolonged monotony. The subjects began to lose touch with reality. Those who stuck it out began to see things, hear things. Distortions set in.
The Supernatural Conspiracy. Part 1. Origins. Long before ghosts, witches, and demons were selling the latest teen movies and books, they were visceral urban legends told by the light of a campfire. In different places throughout history, these superstitions were very real fears and fascinations for many people. In trying to explain what we could not understand, we created entities, communicated with the dead, defied gods, and built strange traditions that still stand the test of time. These stories have left an impact that still haunts man's mythology to this day. Will the truth about the supernatural remain unanswered or be brought to light in the modern world? Primitive man was enamored and overwhelmed by the massive plethora of stimuli that populated his expansive surrounding world. In an attempt to comprehend and rationalize this dense medium, he tried to filter it through his own senses, thought forms, and intelligence. This process created a strange mirror which would show dark and beautifully complex reflections of how humans really experience the world. This imprint on the collector's psyche was a universal event and has been seen in cultures and traditions all over our world. It has become a large part of who we are and how we define the reasons for our existence. Is this supernatural connection a distorted filter our mind created to cope with the pain and confusion of life? Or is there a gateway to something much deeper that is yet to be discovered, which synchronistically hints at its existence to those brave enough to investigate? According to the oral traditions of the ancient wise men, there have always been those who had the ability to walk between worlds. Whether man, animal, or spirit, these characters are said to have done remarkable things. Bards would speak of druids who could control the weather and speak to the very forces of nature to accomplish their will. Shamans were said to be renowned healers, highly skilled at performing not only rites of passage, but metaphysical psychic surgeries as well. All over the ancient world, it was common to hear stories of communication with deities and the dead by ancient seers and mystics of every persuasion. It's hard to say exactly what people witnessed to put them under this impression, but many accounts lack any logical explanation other than possible hallucinations. Entheogens were a large part of many of these early spiritual traditions and could lend clues. But who's to say the entheogens aren't simply the gateway to some miraculous dimension? Unfortunately, due to their long-term scientific prohibition in the modern world, our answers on this subject are limited for the time being. If these strange, natural, psychoactive substances aren't the culprit, is there another explanation? After all, modern accounts of paranormal experiences are independent of altered states of consciousness in most cases. Or are they? Superstition and the concept of karma weighed heavily in the context of the appearance of entities according to ancient texts. The type of life lived by a deceased individual was just as important as the correct performance of the burial rites. One false move could lead to a return to the land of the living. Holy scriptures speak of demons appearing through invocation, and yet most times they showed up unannounced and unprovoked. Did the observers of the supernatural dream up these visions? Or is this spontaneous state of consciousness generated by some other unseen force? We are left with very little solid evidence of the existence of the supernatural forces mentioned by our ancestors. The fact that these phenomena were often linked with traumatic events and fear-based thinking leads us to believe that at least some of these accounts were man's way of coping with the raw nature of his reality. Our ability to understand our mortality is unquestionable, yet people deal with death in a wide variety of ways. Funeral rites in early civilization were a very important part of the culture. These ceremonies and procedures were full of tons of strange superstitions and beliefs. The question is, where did these strange fears and beliefs originate? And what caused our ancestors to believe in the return of the dead, or the disruption of the afterlife? The Egyptian Book of the Dead from 1550 BC shows us imagery of the dead existing in the world of the afterlife, much as they did in our world. Most of the early sightings of ghosts were mirror images of the recently deceased. Were these writings a way to honor the memory of the dearly departed? Were these sightings just the aftershock of lost loved ones, which crystallized their aura onto the senses of the living? Is it simply that some of us aren't able to deal with death? Psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud suggested that the course of our lives greatly shaped our attitudes toward death. Freud speculated that those who lead lives of despair have a greater acceptance of the end, but those who enjoy life cling to it and may leave feeling like they have unfinished business. This is a common motif in ghost lore, which comes from common stories of widows whose lover returned to them as post-mortem as apparitions. Is this due to hysteria, or some unbreakable bond that not even death can part? Certain cultures and ethnic groups are more predisposed to seeing their loved ones appear shortly after death, though it happens in cultures all over the world. Is this due to some zealous religious belief that borders on delusion? Or perhaps there are genetic factors involved in perceiving beyond our world. Though there is no known explanation for this correlation, some practices of sorcery in predisposed groups have been rumored to unlock doorways to the world beyond. One of the most controversial and ambiguous topics in the world of the supernatural is the subject of witchcraft. Some of the earliest records of witchcraft show great reverence for the subject by leaders in the ancient world. Kings would seek the counsel and services of sorcerers in an attempt to gain perceived competitive advantages in battle and conquest. The belief in guidance from an unseen world is as old as mankind itself. These enigmatic figures would travel the ancient world, mapping the stars and attempting to invoke spirits to effect change in the material realm. The fact that they were held in such high regard shows there may have been a method to their madness. Were witches able to hack into reality and change things? Or were they masters of mystic and deception who could convince kings of their power? The main practice of witchcraft has always been the art of divination. Through intense concentration and some loosely organized system, witches tried to peer behind the curtain of linear reality. Some made prophecies that made them influential experts in their society. This art form is seen all over the ancient world. The art of casting sticks was used in systems like the Eastern I Ching and the Norse language of runes. In some more barbaric cultures, mystics would try to scry or derive psychic information from the entrails of slaughtered animals. Modern divination systems are more complex and refined, like tarot cards, which carry very specific symbolic meanings. Due to scholarship on the subject, we see that the modern tarot has roots that go back all the way to the early systems of divination, practiced in ancient mystery school, where these arts were taught to the select few. One thing all these practices have in common is that they have all come under persecution by opposing forces at some point. Many of them outlawed during periods of extreme inquisition, such as the Salem witch trials. This knowledge has always been considered powerful and dangerous. But why? Is there really more to witchcraft than we have been told? Or is this all just an attempt to suppress countercultures at the hands of overzealous tyrants? A clue that may lead us closer to the truth comes out of a climate of extreme oppression during World War II in Nazi Germany. There are many anecdotes and stories about the Nazi fascination with the occult and their attempts to obtain supernatural artifacts from the ancient world. One object that is often discussed among conspiracy theorists is the Spear of Destiny. Often called the Holy Lance, this object was said to exist as a real object mentioned in the biblical narrative of Christianity. The story, chronicled in the book of John, states that when Jesus was hanging on the cross, he was pierced through the side with a lance by a Roman soldier. Legend has it that this dramatic moment imbued the lance with supernatural powers. It has even been said that those who wield it will never be defeated by their enemies in battle. There are several religious and political groups who have claimed to have recovered this authentic artifact since, and they proudly display them to the public. Yet no scientific confirmation of these various claims has ever been made. Did the Nazis truly believe that this item would aid their conquest of Europe? Or was this all some strange, state-sponsored propaganda designed to appeal to the fundamentalist majority of European Christians? The Spear of Destiny was hardly the first claim of supernatural objects believed to bring luck and victory. This belief comes from a much stranger place of origin, and some groups even believed that objects of this nature could be created. During the persecution of the Middle Ages, a group of outlaws gathered in secret and wrote to each other in texts, which contained complex ciphers. They were protecting not only themselves, but the guarded secret of a sacred process which historians still don't fully understand. The alchemists were practicing one of the earliest forms of science derived from the land of Chem, which we know today as ancient Egypt. This system of procedures would ultimately turn into what we now call chemistry, but during the Middle Ages it was extremely illegal. What was so dangerous about these practices that they were outlawed? The church, in collusion with the kings of the time, sought to stamp out free thought and reinforce the feudal system that dominated the masses at the time. Some historians believe alchemy was an experiential program designed to teach its initiates how to think for themselves. This is why it was believed to be so dangerous to the powers that be at the time. If you take a closer look at the texts of the alchemists, you might come to a different conclusion altogether. The clearly stated goal was to create a physical, supernatural object known as the Philosopher's Stone. Though the ability to reason thoroughly was a prerequisite to performing this task, and participants would sharpen their minds during the process, the existence of a material object is universal in accounts of the alchemists. This stone was said to do everything, from giving supernatural knowledge to saving and prolonging life indefinitely. Stories of the supernatural in the Bible are everywhere. Whether it's the parting of the Red Sea or the talking, burning bush, the Church's teachings about miracles have shaped the beliefs of its followers for centuries. The same is true of most forms of organized religion. These supernatural events create complex narratives with major existential implications. The dogma created by these stories causes skeptics to seriously question the true purpose of religion. As outlined in our episode about the influence of the church in society, its collaboration with the state has been well mapped out. Even in the modern world, organized religions jockey for position to gain influence in the political world. The implementation of laws with strictly religious reasoning is supposed to be forbidden in many countries, but it still happens all the time. Why are religious leaders so afraid of the supernatural? Witches and ghosts have always been attributed to demonic influence by church leaders. People found guilty of witchcraft were put to death and even considered to be damned for all eternity. Seems like the people who were the most afraid of these unexplained phenomena were the leaders of religion. One of the darkest and most strange phenomena in our world is linked to the church directly. Demonic possession is more common within religious communities than outside of them. Not only that, but in many parts of the world, the church has exclusive authority to perform exorcisms to try to treat the afflicted. How can those who damn the supernatural be such experts on the topic? It's hard to say whether or not possession is a psychological disorder dressed up to look metaphysical, but the church has very well-developed records on the subject, which is extremely suspicious, to say the least. Though science has had no success confirming the scientific basis for possession, it's interesting to note that King James, who commissioned the creation of the most widely distributed version of the Bible, also published a popular book on demonology. Part 2. Mythology. Around 1841, one of the most notorious occultists would fire back at the church. Alphonse Louis Constant, better known as Eliphas Levi, was a reformed ex-seminary student and a radical socialist. In 1841, he published La Bible de la Liberté, or the Bible of Liberty, which was an incendiary document, deconstructing authoritarianism in the church at the time and espousing socialist principles to a Christian audience. This landed Constant in prison for 8 months, but would do little to deter his life's work. He would go on to continue writing about socialism, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Constant believed people were not intelligent enough to emancipate themselves from the powers of church and state. So he devised a plan to give them sublime instructions through his knowledge of the supernatural. Using his fascination with the study of Kabbalistic writings and his passion for socialism, he developed his occult writings to try to form an elite class of socialists to fight back. In 1855, he published Dogma et Ritual de la Haute Mage. He featured what is the most well-known illustration of the demon Baphomet. This symbol has become the coat of arms for groups opposed to Christianity ever since. It had been adopted by many occult groups, and most notably the Church of Satan, as the two demons have often been conflated. Even before Constant, an occult advisor to the Queen of England named John Dee attempted to create a system of magic known as Enochian magic in order to contact entities he claimed were angels from another dimension. This was directly inspired by a very similar system created by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. In his book, The Lesser Key of Solomon, Agrippa talks about the Goetia. This was a system that contained 72 demons and detailed their attributes, as well as how to deal with them and where they rank in the hierarchy of the infernal world. Pretty crazy, right? Many modern researchers believe these systems were just hidden ways to teach mnemonic systems to initiates of occult study. However, the imagery and reported phenomenon are explored in lucid detail. The real question is, how did the church get itself involved in this information? And if they are still using it today, does that mean demons are real? Though there is little to no hard science to track the existence of demons, ghost researchers have developed a methodology and technology that they suggest can prove their own claims about the existence of supernatural beings. Communication with the dead has been attempted in many ways throughout history. Everything from mediums to Ouija boards to cameras designed to take special photographs have been employed when exploring this idea. As this fascination with ghosts has grown mainstream over time, more definitive universal methods have been developed by using scientific instrumentation and patterns found in empirical cases to develop a formula for this research. EMF meters, infrared thermometers, digital audio recording devices with wide spectrum frequency ranges, and even Geiger counters are now used by ghost hunters to try to detect and record activity. These investigations usually take place at locations where previous activity has been reported, and oftentimes these locations were the place of some grisly backstory involving death or murder. Investigators will usually attempt to speak with and negotiate with the ghost because they believe this increases their chances of gaining substantial evidence. Science has always been skeptical of these claims and proposed evidence and cautioned the public not to believe in such theories. Sounds said to be voices on supernatural recordings are hard to prove. Visual evidence is even more difficult due to its ability to be manipulated so easily. Whatever the truth is, we may never know for sure, but neither side is backing down. Are ghosts a glitch in perception? Or are some people just able to perceive slightly more than others into the world beyond? This very question about widening the perspective of the natural world has caused a revival of animistic pagan traditions. The most popular neo-pagan religion is probably Wicca. This contemporary system of witchcraft, developed by Gerald Gardner, incorporates the use of covens and a strong veneration for the natural world and the spirits it is believed to contain. Modern Wiccan practitioners burn candles and create spells and incantations to try to commune with the natural world, and in some cases, even their deceased loved ones. This begs the age-old question: do these practices give the practitioner knowledge that the rest of us are simply unable to perceive from our current state of consciousness? Several other Hermetic traditions of ceremonial magic have survived into modern times. Communication with the dead isn't usually on the agenda for these groups. The one thing all initiates have in common is the desire for knowledge and profound experience. It's hard to say whether they are simply followers of a cult or practitioners of a secret science that unlocks different parts of the mind. Genius occultist and rocket engineer Jack Parsons is a great example of this dichotomy on display. Due to the morally relative nature of these studies and their hidden ceremonies, the Church still denounces them as evil. Modern conspiracy theorists love to attack and blame the occult for the problems of the world and try to draw spurious connections to support this argument. Are the elite leaders of our world practicing witchcraft? Or has it simply become the scapegoat to protect the Church and all the tyranny it has enacted on society? Part 3. Legacy. Due to countless occurrences of known fraud, usury, and brainwashing, modern society has developed a healthy amount of skepticism for supernatural phenomenon. Though there are many questions left unanswered, the scientific method has laid many myths and hoaxes to rest. The rise of nihilism in the postmodern world has given skepticism momentum in mainstream culture. Currently, religious fundamentalism and the belief in miracles based on religious narratives are still dominant in the world. This is slowly changing, though, due to the rise in the average person's ability to access information and test theories for themselves. Are the skeptics right? Is everything supernatural just a figment of our imagination? Or is it simply more comforting for them to believe this, in a world that is so advanced yet still so dangerous and chaotic? Skepticism claims to be firmly rooted in the scientific method, though its very name suggests a biased and foredrawn conclusion. Is it possible that trying to debunk everything can cause skeptics to elude the truth altogether in some instances? This is the argument of religious apologists and philosophical idealists alike. Has this Newtonian sleep caused mass moral relativism and the decay of modern society? Or is the supernatural world soon to be a thing of the past due to better living through materialist science? Is what we know about supernatural myth applicable to the real world today? If you look at things just right, you might be surprised how these modalities show up in everyday life. Many people have said that computer software is indistinguishable from magic. Software is simply a complex combination of symbols that create a language used to accomplish tasks in the real world. This is no different from many forms of witchcraft, which involve creating sigils that are assigned attributes to aid the magician in certain tasks. If computer software is witchcraft, then AI could be the demons, and influential people in the tech world, such as Elon Musk, have said exactly that. The problems and complexity of a world with artificial intelligence have yet to be resolved, but there is no denying the eerie similarity between non-human intelligence and the metaphysical concept of demons. Perhaps one day, through databases of information and emulating programs, we will even create digital ghosts. These archetypes can be seen everywhere in the way our world has been engineered. Did they come from our belief in the supernatural and our desire to seek more than what we see daily? Or did this capacity always exist, just waiting to be put to more practical use when we would be ready to discover it? The practical use of these beliefs and experiences are not totally known, but that didn't stop the government from trying to find out. For decades, the government has sponsored research into the fields of the supernatural and parapsychology through institutions like the Stanford Research Institute. Modern research has mostly been used for military and intelligence applications. Most notably, the development of a method of gathering intelligence through a psychic system called remote viewing. Though the government claims they had little success with this operation, there are success stories of individuals that seem to prove they might know more than they are telling. With the advent of modern quantum sciences, there are now contemporary, accepted potential explanations for supernatural phenomenon, such as the existence of multiple potential realities as described in the Schrodinger's cat experiment and the basis of string theory. The intelligence in nature that the early pagans described has been transposed onto the theories of quantum metaphysics by Rupert Sheldrake. His theory of morphic resonance suggests that there is an ever-present field of intelligence present in the natural world. This intelligence keeps some form of equilibrium and connects all natural systems harmoniously. Though this is pleasant to believe, it doesn't explain the radical chaos that causes the dramatic imbalance in much of the world currently. Eastern religion, the supernatural, and quantum science are often compared due to their neatly organized, holistic view of the world. The critical application of both of these schools of thought has been limited outside the world of computing. In spite of this, one experiment may be extremely enlightening as to why supernatural phenomenon may be such a common occurrence in our world. In 1998, a famous experiment called the Weismann experiment led to the discovery of what quantum scientists call the observer effect. In the experiment, a photon of light was shot through a narrow slit and projected onto the wall behind it, and the visual results were recorded. What was astonishing about this experiment was that when observed by humans directly, the light appeared one way on the wall, and once the humans left, the recorded evidence showed a completely different effect. This basically proved empirically that the presence of an observer can change the results of an experiment. Maybe people aren't crazy if they see ghosts, practice witchcraft, or get possessed by demons. Maybe it is their perception of these things that influence how they experience them. Is our consensus reality some sort of anchor that shortens the bandwidth of the powers that lie beyond? Or is science just trying to explain things the best way it knows how? There are still so many mysteries out there that it's hard to know anything for sure. Has the modern world solved all its paranormal riddles? Is science moments away from explaining it all? Or do we have much more to learn about the other side and how it operates? Decide for yourself. This is only the official story.